Well, England are alive. They are going through to the Super 8, but boy, oh boy, Bharat Sundaresan, how do you reckon England's nerves were watching that match here tonight in St Lucia between Scotland and Australia?
Like, I don't know what was happening in the English camp. When I mean camp, I mean the team. The English journalists were certainly on tenterhooks. It was funny almost just following their the social media profiles. Literally after every few overs, they'd be like, oh, Scotland are ahead, England are nervous. And at the halfway mark, Scotland are ahead in this game, so far ahead that England should be really nervous. And honestly, it did look like Scotland were on top of this game for the first 14 or so overs, actually the first 15 overs, till it came down to them needing, or Australia needing 60 of the last 5. And then Travis Head went berserk against Sharif. Till that point on, I think Scotland, I wouldn't say had the game in their hands, but they were on even footing with Australia. And yeah, I mean, they also were ensuring that the English hearts were beating a lot more than they should be.
I mean, there was a lot of speculation ahead of this match as how, whether Australia would try and knock England out, blown out of proportion, obviously. And that's maybe a little bit disrespectful to Scotland as well, because they had their opportunities, didn't they? Australia was sloppy in the field. Let's discuss that first. 6 drop catches.
6 drop catches, and at least 4 of which you expect Australia to take. I mean, there were a couple tips of the fingers and one where it fell just short of Mitchell Marsh. But like Mitchell Stark said just now, I mean, I was trying to make excuses for him, saying, is it a tough sighting round? Is it now it was just rubbish? And they were. And not just with their catching, just on the field, they looked a little flat. I think maybe it also had to do with the fact that they were coming off that game in Antigua against Namibia, where they really couldn't take much out of. It was such a short game. Yes, they were ruthless, but in a tournament or in tournament play, you almost want every game to matter, and I think that didn't matter at all because of the way it played out. And you could see that it kind of, they needed like a wake-up call, and I think Scotland provided it, and I'm totally with you. I think we need to talk a lot more about Scotland than England, and maybe do it when England.
Well, let us discuss Scotland, what they did well. I mean, they went 1 wicket down, but that partnership between George Munsey and when you look at Brandon McMullen, he is an incredible player. We didn't even get to see him bowl in this tournament, but 2 incredibly quick 50s in this tournament so far. And then, their bowlers did a really good job of just not letting Australia get away with it until the end. They ran Australia closer than I can recall any associate nation running Australia. Well, what does that say about where Scotland are? They've only lost 1 game and they're not going through to the Super 8, the only team.
And it did annoy me, Mel, honestly, in the lead up to this game, that there was all this talk of like, oh, imagine England will go out just because they lost 1. And I was like, hey, hang on, Scotland haven't even lost yet.
Yeah.
I know their game was washed up against England, but they were properly ruthless against Namibia and Oman. And they gave themselves the best opportunity today to beat Australia. Like you said, they were perfect with the bat. Maybe they lost their way a little bit in between, say, the 11th and the 15th or 16th over. I think they caught up well. They put a total on the board that they think, and their bowling's always been their strength, hasn't it? So they backed their bowling to defend it. And I think it's so disappointing that we don't get to see more of Scotland. They lost to Ireland and Zimbabwe in Hobart after beating West Indies, and it looked like, hey, they might go into the Super 12s. I think it was called then. So again, 1 defeat, and it took Australia to play exceptionally to beat them, to knock them out of this World Cup. So I guess if you're a Scottish fan or just a neutral cricket fan, you take a lot of hearts from it. I'm bumped into a lot of their fans at various airports, and their number has apparently grown from just 6 in Hobart to 70 in the Caribbean. And they were all there, bumped into a couple of them in the stands as well, and you can see what it means to them and also the Scottish players. They spent some time just acknowledging them at the end of the game.
And also, I guess, that the other thing that makes it hard for Scotland, for those who don't know, because they didn't go into the Super 8, that means that they're behind Ireland in the rankings. They go back into the scrap that is most of their existence in qualifying for the next T20 World Cup. So, I mean, that's tough for them. They live on the edge of a precipice all the time, don't they?
And it is like, I've been thinking about it for the last week or so, and I don't think the ICC is going to make changes because I said so. And that there will come a time when you have to pit a team like Scotland or even Netherlands, and how consistently they perform and how they push the big teams in these games and put them up against the likes of Sri Lanka and even Bangladesh. And Sri Lanka have not done much of note at all since they won the T20 World Cup in 2014. They had to qualify for the last 50 over World Cup, and again they really disappointed on the big stage. And I know a lot of Sri Lankan fans will come after me for saying this, but there has to come a time when, I know it's all about rankings, but maybe performances in World Cup should also count for something and not just what happens in bilaterals, especially with a team like Scotland who rarely get to play against the big teams in any format, but especially T20 cricket.
And especially in T20 cricket too, which is supposed to be the format that has been chosen as expansion for the game. So that's really important. There was news, by the way, that has dropped just before this game that Australia will be going and playing 3 T20 internationals at the Grange in Edinburgh before they tour England the back end of this season. And from what we saw tonight, now there should be more interest in that series than ever, because Scotland have shown that they can play without fear against Australia.
Yeah, and especially the bilateral series where obviously the stakes aren't high as what was at stake today. I mean, Scotland nearly got there and they nearly qualified for the Super 8s. And just imagine the scenario, Nell, if Scotland would have defeated Australia, they would have gone to the Super 8s undefeated from a group which had England and Australia. And even though rankings don't matter because of the format of this World Cup, they would have topped the table with England and Australia in it. So that's how close they got to getting there. So I do think that series will be really exciting between Australia and Scotland. And I do hope it's as close to a full-strength Australian team as possible. And just looking at all those Scottish faces towards the end on the boundary, you could see hearts had sunk, and especially when the catch went down in the last over. I still think Australia would have gotten over the line. But you could see not just Chris Solo drop the catch, but everyone around him just kind of see that moment just slip away from them. So just for that, I really do hope there is a lot of interest for that Australia-Scotland series. And who knows, maybe Scotland will get their first win there.
And maybe they will. Mitch Stark has already said, of course, they're all keen golfers. He reckons there's a squad of about 30 coming. They all want to come to Scotland.
And they will play cricket as well.
They will play cricket. But I can tell you they're already keen. I reckon they've put in their the ballot for St Andrews already. So that's exciting. Maybe it might just focus a bit of attention on the fact that the ECB haven't been to Scotland since 2018.
There you go.
Just putting it out there. But that's it from the group stages anyway, from here in St Lucia. It's all ahead in the Super 8s. Let's go USA!
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.